Hi, everyone. This is Holly McElwain, your host for Education Plus, a weekly radio program which spotlights the activities and special events within the more than 100 total quality elementary and secondary Catholic schools in the 6-county area comprising the Diocese of Pittsburgh. This show is sponsored by Centimark Corporation, offering comprehensive roofing solutions. Yes, welcome to another edition of Education Plus. Today's show will open with an interview with our special guest, Mr. Matt Milenovich, one of our seminarians here at St. Paul Seminary in the Diocese of Pittsburgh. Today we're going to learn more about Matt and his call to the Catholic priesthood. So let's go ahead and meet our special guest, Matt. Hi, Matt. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Matt, we're so glad you're here at St. Paul Seminary, and we know that the call to the priesthood is something that men do not take lightly. So today we're going to talk a little bit about your life and your call to the priesthood, but let's begin. How'd you get here? Who are you?
Well, that's a good question. It's been a long journey. Here I'm 31 years old now. But I was introduced to the church kind of at a young age. I didn't grow up Catholic, but my father's side of the family was very devout Catholic, and so I was exposed to it through my grandmother, and so got exposed pretty early and interested in the church, and then that kind of built through high school, and I converted through the RCIA process in high school. And then went to Pitt down in Oakland, main campus, and studied history and philosophy, which actually prepared me very well for the seminary. A lot of my philosophy classes have been able to prepare me for the philosophy that we study here, and some of them even were able to transfer in, which was nice. So, after college, I actually worked for a while in an unrelated field. It was medical device sales and marketing and supply chain position for 6 years. Had a lot of out travel, a lot of different experiences. It was a great time, and during that time I also got very active in parish life and in young adult ministry and youth ministry, and during that time just the call that kind of had been planted a long time earlier in my life started to come out, and then I had to kind of get out of the way and just start to follow the Lord instead of kind of living my life. It was now a life of following Christ and seeing where He was leading me to go, seeing what my vocation is. And so here I am at St. Paul's, and I feel just so thankful to be here. It's a wonderful place, and it's a great time to really grow in my relationship with the Lord, and to just further discern and know what He's asking me to do.
Matt, you came into the church as a teenager. Mm-hmm. You joined the RCIA program as a teenager. What was that like? Were you the only teenager there? Were there other teenagers? And RCIA, for you listening audience who might not know, that's the Rite of Christian Initiation for adults. What that does is it takes a person who is interested in the Catholic faith, who for whatever reason was not baptized, confirmed, the whole 9 yards, takes them into an understanding of the Catholic faith and brings them into the church at our Easter Vigil. Matt, what was your experience like?
Well, it was a great experience, and it was, at that point in time I had I had a lot of interest in the church, so I read a lot of the Catechism, watched CWTN, and read a lot of philosophy and theology actually at that time. So I had a pretty good base knowledge, and it was funny because I was the only teenager in the class. Still run into some of the other candidates. Now I think they were mostly all in their 50s at the time. So a bit older than me, but I actually, I answered questions constantly in there and things. So I was able to really engage in that discussion at that time, and it was a lot of fun.
What church did you come through the process with?
St. Benedict the Abbot. That's in McMurray, PA.
And is that where you grew up?
It is. It is where I grew up. I was born in Waynesburg, PA, actually, but we moved. My family moved to the South Hills, McMurray area when I was 2 years old. So pretty much my whole life was there. It's where I went to high school, and that's my parish that I came out of to come to St. Paul's.
That's great. You had mentioned that after college you'd gotten involved in life at your parish and in young adult ministry. What was college like, before we hear more about your experience in the parish, what was college like as a young man who had recently come into the church, who was thinking deeply about these things? Did you sense that you had a call to the priesthood even then, or was that just too early?
Well, I think, It's kind of interesting because it's looking back now, I have maybe a different perspective than I did then. It was something I did think of a little bit, but I really thought, oh, I'm supposed to go to school. I want to be a professor. I want to do this. Though I don't think I really knew exactly what I wanted to do, but I did want to get married. I dated in college. I kind of lived just the normal college life. But certainly that there was still a tug that was there. It came on a lot stronger though after college.
And after college is when you got involved with parish life at your parish, St. Benedict the Abbot in McMurray. How was it to encounter parish life as a young adult, just out of college, recently become Catholic in the previous few years? Tell us about your experience in coming into the parish.
Well, it was a great experience. I remember meeting with our youth minister when I was looking to get a little bit more involved, and then just instantaneously we had a connection, Janet Roberto, and then we kind of went from there. I first of all got involved with the youth ministry as a core member, as we call it, which is like kind of one of the adult members of the youth group that helps lead the youth group events and kind of is there to help form them, to help be an example for them. But then, I had the idea to kind of start something of a young adult ministry there, and we didn't really have it, and so that happened, and then that kind of formed into a role of still being involved with the youth ministry, but being involved with young adult ministry as well. And we started an event called Dinner, Drinks, and Discussion, where we just really would talk about Jesus and would talk about our own lives and the way we were experiencing the Lord. And at the same time, having some fellowship, having some time to meet, to grow friendships, and to grow closer to God, but then also to kind of integrate Him into our lives, not just at Mass, but in our daily lives. So,
Matt, my role as the associate director in the Department for Youth and Young Adult Ministry, I've encountered you through some of the various young adult activities. Do you remember? How we met? Do you remember the beginning of our friendship?
Yeah, absolutely. It was at a Bible study in the South Hills that both of us hadn't been to before. Didn't know what to expect at it, and boy, we were. I mean, we still go to the Bible study, so so it's kind of like it really had an effect. But yeah, I remember meeting. I was just starting that group. I think we may have had one or two meetings at that point in time. And now your now husband was there too.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing how young adults engaging in their full active participating life in the church can discover not only friendships and not only a deeper relationship with God, but essentially we're seeing within our own community, young adults are experiencing the call to their own vocations. You to the priesthood, me to marriage. Matt, do you feel like your community of peers in this young adult ministry, do you feel like they supported you and helped you to really hear God's call in any way?
I think they did, for sure, and it was not by any like extraordinary thing that they did. It was just participating in the group, and I think just that group was us forming friendships where we could talk about these questions, these deeper questions. What is my vocation? Not just what do I want to do in life, but what does God want me to do? What am I being asked to do that will help me be the best that I can be? And I think those kind of conversations happened and certainly supported that very much.
Matt, what do you think? You've seen a lot of young adults at the various parishes that you've visited as a seminarian. You've seen a lot of youth through your time with youth ministry. And you have friendships with a lot of your peers that are in various levels of involvement in their faith. What do you think the underlying deepest needs of the young church are?
Well, I think community is one of them. The church, it's social. It's not just us. It's not an individual praying. It's not just the requirement to go to Mass every week. It's a lot more than that. And I think especially in our culture today, it's so important for us to have to see God in the people and the events of our lives, and to be there for others too at that same moment. And so in that, together as the body of Christ, then living that out, we can really foster vocations in that way.
Speaking of fostering vocations, let's talk about your call. You mentioned that you dated and had a career, and and lived this full life prior to entering the seminary. I know you're newer to the seminary campus. How did you go from a working man with a great circle of friends and a young adult ministry, engaging in life, dating and seeing life as it is? How'd you go from that to a room here at St. Paul's Seminary? What happened?
Well, I mean, I kept feeling the tug, and I knew I knew that my path was going to go through St. Paul's when I was accepted to enter in. This is where the Lord was placing me. I still at that moment was not sure, and as maybe I'm not still now, and I don't need to be, if God's calling me this or not, but God, He's placing me in the places to do it. So I think that's a lot of times the way the Lord speaks to you of what your vocation is. He just puts you in that place. It's not necessarily this audible voice telling you something. It's just you continue in that place. So for me in that sense, it was making that transition, and really what it was a transition of a bit of dying to yourself, dying to what was important to me as a career, as living on my own, as being involved in the ministry and stuff in the church. That was one focus, and then here it had to be a focus of, it's not about me. Not that it necessarily was totally about me then, but it had to be even less, because I had to get out of the way so the Lord could work, so the Spirit could work. And that's exactly what happened. And the first week or so was difficult. It really was. It was a transition. But no pain, no gain, right? It's what they say. And I can tell you that, at least for me, that was very true. Whatever little bit of suffering, if you will, or whatever little bit of challenges or hurdles there were there, well, the Lord blessed me tenfold for any of them. So what happened was over the course of the semester, I've just grown closer and closer and really become more certain of what the Lord's calling me to do, I think so.
That's the amazing thing about vocation. And I feel like we don't spend a lot of time in the world talking about vocation. We talk about goals and success and dreams and movement. But when we really sit down, you spoke very clearly about vocation, how God calls us and He prepares us. And He places these desires in our heart, which can only be satisfied by Him. And as you were talking, I kind of smiled as I reflected on when I met my husband. You were there. Mm-hmm. And a year later, when he asked me to discern a life together, and how it's a little scary, because if I choose this, my life will never be the same. And if I ignore this, my life might never change. And that place between the same, the known, and the change, the unknown. And, I think about maybe anyone in a vocation, that we are called to surrender our life, surrender our wants, and fully take on that plan that God has for us, which fulfills us in all ways, more than we would ever know. And when you think about who you are in the church today, what is that thing that you, Matt, are bringing to the church that only you can bring to the church?
Well, yeah, I think I'm still kind of discerning that in a way, but I think there's still, I can still answer that though, because I still think there's still a process of preparation there, and I don't know, maybe that it never actually ends. You're continually sent on different missions, but primarily I think it's the experience that I have and some of the gifts that have come along with that the Lord's graced me with, is to let those gifts come to the surface, to serve the people of God, and in whatever places the Lord places me in.
Right.
Really, yeah.
So tell us about where you're at in the seminary right now. Where are you at in the process, and what do you have to look forward to?
Well, we're entering the end of this semester. I have a long term paper due in a couple days, so that's the major thing on my mind at the moment. But we're almost done with this semester. We'll have our evaluations. It's kind of a bittersweet. We get to end the semester and the schoolwork and the stress of that, but then at the same time, and I was just talking to one of our brother seminarians about this morning, it's bittersweet because some of the guys are moving on to theology that we have close relationships with, and all of us are going off to do various things in the summer. So it's kind of, for me, the next step for me is going to be working at St. Louis Parish in Upper St. Clair and living there, and then also working with you, Holly, too, over the summer. So I'm looking forward to that new challenge of a more pastoral formation, though I will still keep up with some continuing academic stuff to prepare for next year. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So that's where I'm at.
That's exciting. The road to the priesthood is long.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about the fact that you have already completed 4 years of undergraduate study at Pitt, and you think, you had a career already, a freedom, a life that you could do anything with, and then you think about your choice. How old are you?
31.
31 years old. 31-year-old man choosing to leave his career, his apartment, his social life, and leave that at the foot of the altar and embark on this road to the priesthood. How long will it be before, if all things go as planned, before you are ordained to the Catholic priesthood?
It'd be 6 years.
6 years.
6 years, and that seems like a long time, though I'm told it's not a long time. It goes pretty quickly when you're in formation, and I can believe that just from what I've experienced so far. Time goes pretty quickly. You're very busy, but the word you used, freedom, to describe the way it was before is exactly what I thought it was. I thought, oh, I'm free. But I can tell you what, I have a new appreciation of what freedom is after entering the seminary, and really just surrendering my ideas of what my life could be, to let the Lord go ahead and show me what He can make them be. So,
Matt, I am so glad you caught that, because oftentimes our world tells us that freedom is the ability to do whatever we want, whenever we want. But I think the freedom that you have found is the freedom to choose the good in all things. And that's the fruit of virtuous living. And it seems like this home here at St. Paul Seminary is like the home of Nazareth, where you are inclined to choose the good. Which you're nodding, but no one can hear that.
Yeah, I'm nodding because specifically the home of Nazareth. I mean, there's two things that we did this semester as kind of a just during Lent, as kind of a spiritual growth, and we did the consecration to Jesus through Mary, 33
the St.
days.
Louis.
Yes, the Montfort, which is of course very providential. It's his feast. It's his feast day. So, also we did the cloak of Saint Joseph. So in that way, surrendering yourselves through our Blessed Mother and Saint Joseph, to have almost new spiritual parents to help you grow closer to Christ, and so that's why I say yes, literally that happened spiritually with me, and so that's been a big help.
That's beautiful. Well, Matt, you have 6 years before we will know you as Father Matt. So in the next 6 years, you have a lot of journey ahead of you. You will go from your role here at St. Paul's. You have another year here.
Yeah. And
then you'll go to where?
That's up to the faculty and the bishop.
Is that known as the theology years?
Yes.
And that's more of you're in the minor seminary now, and that's more of a major seminary experience.
Yep.
We've got guys from our diocese that are in formation right now at various seminaries. You want to tell us about each of those before we close?
I will. We have men at St. Vincent's Seminary in Latrobe, PA. We also have men down in Baltimore at St. Mary's Seminary down there. And then we also we have a lot of guys actually at the Theologica College in Washington, D.C., which is right across the street from the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. And then finally, we have guys over in Rome at the Pontifical North American College as well. So
there's some great options out there.
There are. They're all good options. So.
Well, Matt, we're really excited. St. Louise, I'm sure, will be excited to have you this summer. And the Department for Youth and Young Adult Ministry and the Secretariat for Leadership Development, we are thrilled to have you with us for the summer as well. And, Matt, I guess when I look at you, I see a 31-year-old man who has been faithful, who chose this Catholic faith, who chose to give his life to the church, who chose to pour out his life for his friends and inviting them into community. I think the church is really going to be blessed by having you give your life in the priesthood. What does that feel like to hear one of your peers and one of your friends say that?
Well, it feels really good, but at the same time, I know at the same time it's like well, it's not really me doing this, it's the Lord working, and you get a real good appreciation of that because you see the times when you just can't do it, and then you see the times where the Lord takes over and He does it. And so I think just having so many of those opportunities and feeling so blessed to have those and be aware of those has made me just realize like it's really not that I, trying to take St. Paul's words of it's not that I live but Christ that lives in me, and really being able to live that, experience it, and the freedom that comes along with that.
Well, Matt, thank you so much. You said that so well, and our hope is that as people listen to your heart today on this show, that they might remember to pray for vocations, that they might remember to pray for you, and pray for our priest, because our Catholic Church is sustained by the Eucharist, and we can only have the Eucharist when we have the priesthood. And so I hope that all of our listeners will join me in praying for that. And I want to thank you, Matt, for your time today. And I want to thank you for listening to Education Plus, a program which is made possible in part by support from the Centimark Corporation, KQV Radio, and Steel Sales Incorporated. And if you would like to learn more about the Catholic schools in the Diocese of Pittsburgh, or are a business that would like to give a tax credit donation, please call 412-456-3090 or fax 412-456-3098. Catholic schools, where great beginnings last a lifetime. This is Holly McElwain. Please join me next time for Education Plus.